Welcome to our tutorial about validation controls. Some fields on a form are usually required. That is, the user must provide some input before clicking Submit and returning the data form to the server. To enforce this, we use what are called validation controls. Let's grab the required field validator from the toolbox and drop it next to email. Now let's go change some properties. Text. I'll enter an asterisk. That indicates that it's required. If the required field is left empty, then the text from the error message text property will display. Now let's select the control to validate. We'll choose text box email. Let's run our program and see how it works. If the email field is empty when the user clicks Next, a red asterisk appears next to the email field. An asterisk is generally understood to indicate a required field. Let's close our application. Now let's try to use the compare validator. We're going to drop it next to the state drop-down list. In the text property, we'll also use an asterisk. The control to validate. Let's choose the state drop-down list. Now let's change the type to a string. We've got a number of options here: integer, double, date, and currency, as well as string. But the data we're comparing is a string. Next, we need a value to compare. Let's type select state. What this does is that if the user doesn't select anything, the state field will display select state, and it'll be selected by default. We need to choose an operator. In this case, not equal to. Let's check it out to see how it works. When the user clicks Next, both fields now display asterisks next to them. But if I enter an email address, text@text.com, let's fix that typo, and select a state, you see that the asterisks disappear. Let's look at one more control. We can also provide explanations and instructions next to the required field. Or we can use what's called the validation summary control. Let's drag and drop this control onto my form. When I drop this control in, we don't have to make any changes. It'll work as is. Let's add some header text, though, just to clarify. We'll enter required. Let's change the message as well for the email field and the state validator too. Here we'll type email. And for the state selector, we'll type state. These are the messages that'll appear in the validation summary control. Let's load our browser. When the user tries to submit the form without entering the email or selecting a state, we now have a summary message below required. The user now knows that email and state are required fields. A red asterisk appears next to each field, and the user knows that he or she will have to deal with those two fields before submitting the form again. This concludes our tutorial about using validation controls.